Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're still discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I am your host, Brennan Klein. What was that? Tim is not speaking at the beginning of this episode. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your proclivities. It's unfortunate for me because I am now in the hot seat. But because we have a wider pool of alternate ending contributors now, Tim's not going to be on every episode. Sometimes I'm going to be leading the conversation, which I'm used to with Bride of Alternate Ending, but I'm also used to starting with a very bad accent, and I'm not going to be doing that on the regular shows, so things are going to be a little wet and wild. But here to guide me are two people you will also be familiar with from our pool. You will have been introduced to them in the past couple episodes, if not on the Discord or the many, many things that they have contributed before. But we are here with Zev Burrows. Hello, Zev. How are you doing?
Hey, Brennan, thanks for having me. Good to be back.
You're welcome. Happy to have you back. And we're also here with Andrew Milne. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing good, thanks very much, Brennan. And happy to provide the bad accents if you're not stepping up to the plate for those this evening.
Are you an impressionist, or are you making fun of the fact that you do not have an American accent like the majority of
Oh
the
no,
people?
that's just me reflecting on my incomprehensible miasma of like transatlantic nonsense that comes out of my mouth.
No, I really like what you're working with. So no badness to be had here. And I told myself I was going to check before the podcast and it totally slipped my mind, but I pronounced both your names correctly, right?
Yes, yeah, yes,
Okay,
indeed.
great. Yeah, as someone with an Irish first name and a German Jewish last name, I'm very used to my name being improperly pronounced, so I hate doing that to other people. We're here to talk. We're going to do the movie roundtable. I am curious about both of your movies, but I think let's go in chronological order. So, Zev, I believe you have the oldest movie to bring to us. So, what do you have to talk about today?
By probably at least 90, almost 100 years. So I'm taking things back to the silent era, to one of the earliest films directed by Alfred Hitchcock, called Downhill. And if you're wondering why I put this on specifically, I try almost every year or every other year to participate in Letterboxd's Criterion Challenge, and this week happened to be focusing on a pick from the 1920s. And there's still a couple of Hitchcock silents that I still have not seen. This was one of them, so I thought good opportunity to catch up. So one of Hitchcock's, if there's one thing, if there's I don't think there's many things we know about Alfred Hitchcock, but I think among movie buffs, one of the things that we often associate with Hitchcock is this theme of innocent men on the run. He visited this theme time and time again. 39 Steps, Young and Innocent, To Catch a Thief, and probably most famously and probably best in North by Northwest. But I think Downhill from 1927 was probably the earliest incarnation of that. But in a sort of twist, it's not necessarily a wrong man on the run. Spoilers. Our protagonist this time is not on the run from the law. He's sort of on the run from his own circumstances. So our protagonist, his name is Roddy. He is a star rugby player and school captain at an elite boys' college. And one day he and a friend get into a little naughty business, which I will not go as much into. He takes the fall for his friend's mistake. Spoilers. His friend is on track to receive a scholarship to attend Oxford, so he says, you know what, I'll take the fall. I don't think he says, you know what, I'll take the blame for it. I think he's more or less forced into taking the blame. And we see his life literally spiraling downhill henceforth throughout the remainder of the movie. He has a falling out with his parents, most notably his father. He gets into a lot of trials and tribulations that lead him basically through the muck and the mud. And we can see from Downhill very early that Hitchcock was already doing some very interesting things with lighting and shadows. He had been an assistant director to F.W. Murnau. So there are some lifts from the OG Nosferatu. There's a shot where he's walking up some stairs and his shadow gets very big. It's a very, very clear very clear shadow. And there's also some incredible long shots where when he's walking out of the school as after he's been expelled, he's just at the very center of the frame, so super tiny as this huge wall is just behind him, and we could just feel the impact of what has happened to him. But narratively, it actually kind of feels more similar to another F.W. Murnau movie, The Last Laugh. But instead of sort of misfortune continuing to befall a good human being, this is sort of a misfortune sort of befalls I would probably say, to be nice, maybe call him morally ambiguous.
He's compromised.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a very compromised figure. It is on the Criterion Channel. I think, for me, Hitchcock's silent movies are kind of hit and miss, but I think this is one of the better ones. This kind of it is kind of like a whirlwind of just where he's taking his protagonist. And if early expressionist influenced Hitchcock is of interest to you, then it is on the Criterion Channel, and I hope you check it out.
And I don't see why it wouldn't be to a lot of the film buffs who listen.
No.
But as far as like if it's a predecessor to those other movies that you mentioned, do you feel like it kind of stands up among that pantheon, or does it feel like, oh, this is a first try and he kind of perfected that format?
This is kind of a test run, but at the same time, it's a test run that I still am glad I spent time with. I still think that there is the seeds being planted for what he would do later in those other works. And it's a drama too. It's not a comedy. Like some of those Innocent Man on the Run movies, like To Catch a Thief and North by Northwest, are comedies very much in a way. This is not. And because it's sort of, we're not following him on an adventure like we're following Cary Grant. We're literally watching his life spiral downwards, and it's kind of bleak. It's very visually stunning, but it's just very bleak. It's a drama. So I think if there's anything to be taken from it, it's he probably thought for his next ventures in this, okay, how can I do this but make it fun? It's not fun, but it's good. I would say that.
You kind of blew my mind there, Zev, because I had no idea about that factoid that he was an understudy to Murnau. Like, even though that does kind of make sense once you lay it out like that, but like seeing a sort of straight line from something like The Last Laugh or even Nosferatu through to Hitchcock is like that. Yeah, you can sort of see that DNA just sort of spiraling through the decades, can't you? I'm kind of underseen on Hitchcock's earlier stuff. I think the oldest one of his films I've seen is The 39 Steps, which like you say is kind of a romp. It's paranoiac. It's quite it does have that sense of fate bearing down on its protagonist, and that sort of like the walls are closing in aspect to it. But it is fun while it's doing that. So sort of the primordial version, like even more so, like back to the silent era of something like that, is something I would like to check out. So yeah, Hitchcock's silent era is something I need to get my hooks into.
Yeah, and people don't talk about Hitchcock's silent era enough, and I can see why, but I still think we should.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and especially for a filmmaker whose work is so recognizable to so many people, it can be very interesting to see where they started and to kind of see the seeds that are planted in the things that people recognize more.
It's still probably something that he made before he became Hitchcock. But
yeah,
I mean,
but like Brennan says, I love seeing the sort of larval seeds. Larval, I don't think that's a biological thing, but the seeds of what goes into a filmmaker's later career, even if it's sort of in that protoplasmic form.
Totally.
Yeah, and speaking of, you mentioned spiraling through the decades earlier. We will be doing that with this conversation. Andrew, what movie are you bringing to the table today to discuss?
So it's not quite that far ahead, as you were saying, Zev. It's only a mere 62 years later. So what I picked is 1989's In the Line of Duty 4, which was directed by Yuen Woo Ping in Hong Kong. part of his sort of early run of B movies, when he was still in sort of the process of establishing himself as this great action coordinator and maestro of fight scenes in sort of classic Hong Kong martial arts cinema. Also, an early leading performance from Donnie Yen,
Nice.
who obviously would go on to become kind of a superstar in decades to follow, with the sort of terrifying tenacity we associate with Tom Cruise in the West. Although he's not actually the protagonist of this film, the protagonist here is Cynthia Khan. She's sort of remembered these days as the woman you got to star in your movie if you couldn't get Michelle Yeoh's number. But she's very talented and an actress and a stunt woman in her own right, and just rocks a leather jacket in this film like you wouldn't believe. Just 80s fashion off the charts. It's very much in the sort of vein of the kind of movies that got made in Hong Kong in the wake of Police Story and A Better Tomorrow, where it's very cops and robbers. This very pastiche romp that moves at an absolute breakneck pace. The gist of it is there's a man who's like a dock worker. He's seen a murder being committed by corrupt police, and he's now a witness to this drug smuggling operation. He goes on the run, and he's being followed by Cynthia Khan and Donnie Yen, who are Hong Kong police officers, and they protect his life in the process of uncovering all this corruption, all of which is fairly incidental because the actual plot is kicking,
Yeah.
as we all know. So this is a film it's got a reputation among the sort of martial arts movie cognoscenti over the years as one of the sort of classics of the B movie circuit that was going on around then. Because this wasn't like a high profile production, even by the standards of Hong Kong around this time. This wasn't a lavish sort of something like Project A or Police Story. This was not a Golden Harvest production. It wasn't Shaw Brothers. It was relatively low budget, and it falls into that sort of get them done quick, get them done cheap, get them out the door in bulk kind of ethos. And it's sort of one that sort of rose as the cream of the crop from that whole ecosystem. It's known primarily for just how stuffed to the gills with fight sequences it actually is. It grows kind of dizzying after a while. There's this astonishing sequence where Cynthia Khan's just climbing around the outside of a car, breaking through the windows while it's in motion down this highway. Donnie Yen gets to fight his whole old friends from Boston, John Salviti and Michael Woods, in these sort of extended duel sequences. You almost struggle to go more than one scene without some extravagantly choreographed set piece moving things along, almost to the point that it becomes disorienting. Like the order of events in this film are pretty much arbitrary and essentially incoherent. In a lot of ways, the kind of Hong Kong films of this era remind me of Italian movies from around the same time, in that it's all about just sort of the show-stopping moments and the show-stopping images, and just keeping them coming and not really worrying about the connective tissue.
I was going to say, with so much action going on, do you feel like it built to a crescendo, or did it kind of peak too early and then you're kind of getting tired?
That's a good question. I think the finale does have a good sort of show-stopping moment, which is the duel between Donnie Yen and Michael Woods on a rooftop. But yeah, you could kind of chop and change the scenes and move them around in this in kind of any order. It has a reputation for being a lot like a lot of genre movies historically. A lot of Hong Kong films from this period will have like one great sequence at the beginning, one great sequence at the end, and a lot of the stuff in the middle is kind of fluff and filler. I think In the Line of Duty 4 benefits from just being as relentless as it is because you don't necessarily need to skip to the good parts. It's never leaving you antsy. Yuen Wu-ping is a really good director in the sense that his images are not painterly. What he's really, really good at, and this is true of other his contemporaries like Jackie Chan, like Sammo Hung, he's really good at directing the viewer down this sort of straight line of cause and effect from one image to the next, and just maintaining this absolute clarity and this sort of intuition of how the characters move their bodies through these spaces. And just like every scene is full of this sort of playful visual energy. Like every object is like an opportunity to be sort of weaponized or sort of vaulted over or swung from, and it gets you into this headspace where the whole world is a playground. It's not for everyone, but if you are like a mark for this kind of thing, then I think it warrants being checked out because, especially now that it has a sort of plush Blu-ray release, which a lot of these sort of films have been getting from labels like Eureka and 88 in the last few years.
Great. And I was wondering, have you seen the previous three In the Lines of Duty?
So the thing about the In the Line of Duty series, it is not really a series. So
I imagined so. Okay, I was
yeah,
curious.
it's very much like the Tiger Cage series, where the titles are kind of they get scrambled from one international release to another. It's sort of like how Zombie 2
Mhm.
was supposedly like it was a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, but not actually.
Yep.
It's the same kind of deal as that. Like there are these films that are sort of generically similar, but don't actually have a through line to follow. Apparently, I don't know this firsthand, but apparently Cynthia Khan is playing the same character she was in the Line of Duty 3, but the continuity is minimal. Interestingly enough, the original film that is supposedly in the Line of Duty is actually better known in the West now as Yes, Madam, which is,
Oh,
yeah, that's an early Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock vehicle, which kind of kickstarted this whole subgenre.
got it. Oh, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
you have to be you have to be picking up what they're putting down. But if you are, then this is an absolute treat. I was buzzing the whole time I watched this.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fascinating. I'm definitely underseen on Hong Kong action cinema, definitely of this period. I know a bit about Hong Kong horror cinema from this period because that's my sphere.
Oh, sure.
But you're selling me, Zev. Have you seen that movie In the
I
Line of Duty
haven't
4? No.
I haven't seen any of the In the Line of Duties, but I am being sold. So thank you, Andrew.
I'm glad. I hope I've convinced at least someone with this diatribe because it's quite special. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, no. Fingers crossed. Look, this is a good platform for it. Hopefully, somebody on the Discord you've lit the spark beneath them to see this movie.
That's
Yeah,
always the hope.
and my hope with my movie, which we are zooming into the future, zooming towards the present. In fact,
Hmm.
if you're in the U.S., it is this week, and if you're in the U.K., it is it's a couple months old. But I decided I'm going to bring Paddington in Peru. Um,
Oh.
I actually jumping in. I'm curious what are I don't believe either of you have seen this, but do you have a relationship to the previous two Paddington movies?
Not
They're good.
personally. So I have a relationship to the character of Paddington growing
Mm-hmm.
up. I think I mentioned this on the last preview episode, but I don't have a relationship to the films as they exist now. It's more a nostalgic thing.
Got it. And Zev, not you either.
No, I mean I have I don't have a relationship to the character growing up, but for the two Paddington movies that have come out, they're good. I think they're good. I don't understand the level of holy cow best movie of the 2010s heaped at either one, but I think they're good. They're
Yeah,
good.
okay, fair enough. I
So
I'm fully in the bag on the first two Paddington movies, not to the point like I give them both a 9 out of 10. I really really like them. I don't think they're necessarily works of genius, and I think that Paul King attempting to apply that same formula to Wonka proved
oh
that
god,
he's maybe not a genius. But I think those first two movies really, really work for me, and I have a good time with them. And simply the idea of the poster and trailer for Paddington in Peru put me off, where I was like, what the fuck are you doing to Paddington? Because Paddington is the thing that it's doing, whether or not you're enjoying it, the thing that the franchise is doing is putting this gentle fish out of water character into this kind of storybook London and having him impact people's lives for the better. And the question that they asked in this one is, what if instead he was in one of those subpar Indiana Jones ripoffs like Jungle Cruise or Uncharted? I mean, I don't know. I never saw that movie. I don't have an opinion on that movie. But just it seems like the worst possible idea. And from square one, it proves it that my thesis to be correct, that it was just not the right move for this franchise. I think I was rereading Tim's review of the first Paddington, and he mentioned there are all these like lovely storybook touches that the movies have, including the fact that they say that Paddington is from darkest Peru, and they consistently say that the entire time. But by engaging with the quote unquote reality of Peru and like trying to world build Paddington's like backstory and origins, it completely shreds the entire premise of the movies, because this is not a character who needs a deep lore and backstory, and not that this is like deep, but it cannot be explored, because the more questions you ask about it, the more holes you poke in the premise. Just in the sense of like, they have somehow made a Peruvian movie that I don't believe has a single Latin American person in it. Maybe one with one line, and they sort of engage with the fact that modern Peru speaks Spanish, and they sort of engage with the fact that there is an indigenous population in Peru, but the fact that they like kind of glance at those things makes everything feel much more like British and icky and weird.
Yeah.
And also it's just they're throwing this half-assed kludge of scenes from the previous two movies into this adventure movie, and it just doesn't work. The plot is really predictable in the few moments where it is not. There are usually between 3 and 4 lines pointing out to you what the plot turn that you just witnessed was and what it means. It's really embarrassing. I did not like it at all.
That's a shame.
It's a huge shame. I will say, no, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna keep dumping on it and then end on the positive. They replaced Sally Hawkins with Emily Mortimer, which my first exposure to Emily Mortimer was in 30 Rock, where she plays the woman who has very breakable bones, and she is incredibly funny in that show. But my second major exposure to her was her completely ruining the English voice dub of Howl's Moving Castle. So I don't really know where I stand with Emily Mortimer, but she is not up to the level of the work that Sally Hawkins was doing in the previous two movies, and they lean on her really hard. But anyway, Olivia Colman is in this movie. She plays the Mother Superior nun of the Catholic outcrop that is running the home for retired bears in Peru. And Olivia Colman, I feel like she can do no wrong, or at the very least, if you're seeing her do wrong, you can see her in a new thing in 20 minutes, because she's working in everything. She's so good at giving little half-second facial expressions that are so memorable and so good and so funny. And the Mother Superior, like, nun drag that they have her in, it has the big kind of square hat with the round opening for her face, and like solely isolating the experience of seeing Olivia Colman's face from any other part of her body only enhances the things that she can do with her face. And it's I think basically every choice around her is very good, and every choice around everything else is the most dire, generic kiddie movie bullshit. They're stealing liberally from Pixar, they're stealing liberally and half-assing the previous Paddington movies. It's just, I don't recommend it.
I mean, the previous two Paddington movies, I didn't rush out to see them, and you are making a convincing case to follow in those footsteps to not run out and see it. So I will probably end up seeing it, but I will probably end up waiting for it to come to streaming of some kind.
Yeah, you're gonna walk to see it.
I do like. I mean, Paddington 2 was essentially just Grand Budapest Hotel for kids, and Grand Budapest was probably my favorite movie of the 2010s. So, I mean, I'll just watch that. I'll just watch that instead. But you are not making a convincing case to see this in theaters, so, which is a little disheartening, but at the same time, kind of a little reassuring, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Like, not even necessarily walk out to see it so much as, like, if you fall asleep and it's autoplayed when you wake up, then I won't turn it off, sort of thing.
But yeah, Paddington in Peru, if you are dragged by a child to go see it, or if it happens to be on, sure. watch Paddington in Peru. I don't recommend being hyped about it if you are a fan of the first two movies. Which I am, and I think it disappoints on a lot of those levels, but I think even if you don't care at all about those movies, you'll just be like, this is like a very mediocre kind of children's adventure movie.
Yeah.
I'd probably rather rewatch Jungle Cruise than rewatch Paddington in Peru.
Oh. I have to say, when you said Olivia Colman was in this, like I had to do a double take almost because I would have thought it just seems like the most natural thing in the world that she would have been in these films from the get-go. Because she seems like she would ingratiate herself so easily into that kind of quaint English vibe.
The Paddington movies usually get like at least one big English or Australian star for like each of them to play a huge role, because I think Hugh Grant was in one and Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
So I think it feels like Olivia Colman is like the natural next step.
Yeah, and I saw this at an AMC, so I did get to see the little Nicole Kidman bumper before the movie. So it felt like she was a part of it. But yeah, no, I think the thing of Olivia Colman being in everything happened in the last 5 or 6 years, and Paddington 2 came out in 2018, so she hasn't really had a chance to jump in just yet. So this struck at the right moment for her to appear.
Is Peter Capaldi still kicking around?
No, he's not in this one. This is like a later season of a TV show where some people get cameos and some people just aren't there, and it's a little the cast just feels weird and kind of lopsided.
I take that.
Yeah, you do get a little sniff of Jim Broadbent though, so that's nice.
That's always nice. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the last I want to say about Paddington in Peru. So it is the last episode of February, which means we are looking forward to what is coming out in the next month. Obviously, Andrew, your region's going to look a little different than ours, so please either boast or complain when things are looking different on your end.
I tried this with the last preview episode, and what I realized quite quickly is it is abominably difficult to get reliable information on what's coming out in the UK independently of its release in the US. That is not a query that Google facilitates very easily.
No, that it's weird. In this world of modern technology, you feel like the internet can do anything, and there are so many glaring places where it just cannot. It simply refuses.
These weird blind spots, and UK release dates are one of those. It's an albatross around our necks.
I'm so sorry. So I hope we are not tempting you with certain titles that you have no idea if or when you will ever be able to watch them, as well as our general international audience.
I think I know the ones that we are going to get, and I know the ones that I am excited about.
Great, perfect. Yeah, so we are going to be structuring it from a US/domestic box office perspective. But the first movie we're talking about is not particularly domestic, and also one that probably has a questionable release in the UK. We're going to open with Bong Joon-ho's new movie, Mickey 17. Am I correct? Is this his first movie since Parasite? He hasn't done anything since then,
It is. Right? I was surprised when I realized that, but yeah, it's his first one in 6 years.
Yeah, that is wild. And, well, Andrew, are you excited about Mickey 17?
I am so psyched for this. Like, this is genuinely... This might be one of my 3 or 4 most anticipated movies of this year. So we're kind of starting this month off on a hot item. But yeah, just having Bong Joon-ho back. I actually just saw Snowpiercer for the first time just a couple of months ago and realized I really should have made time for that many, many years earlier than I did, because I was blown away by just how good Snowpiercer was. The fact that now he's got the additional clout of being an Oscar winner and being able to get on, Robert Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo and these kind of high wattage actors who I feel really complement his kind of offbeat tendencies, and leveraging a bigger effects budget, and the early word from the reviews seems to be really good. Like, this is sort of a less subtle Starship Troopers is a line I've parroted a few times. So yeah, this is like I'm going to make time for this as soon as I possibly can.
This might be my number one most anticipated of the year. I just heard that Wes Anderson has something new in May or June, but I think even this might be eclipsing that by just a little bit. I'm right there in the same boat with Bong Joon-ho. I'll throw out that Mother also was one of the most thrilling movies of the 2000s. Not the Darren Aronofsky Mother, save that for another time. But I join with you right there on Snowpiercer. And Snowpiercer feels all too familiar
Just a touch.
right now.
Yeah.
But no, I am dead excited for Mickey 17, and it's got a stacked cast. In addition to Robert Pattinson, Stephen Yeun, Toni Collette.
Toni Collette gets me in the door on almost anything. I mean, she's another very busy person, so I cannot simply just walk into every Toni Collette movie. But yeah, Toni Collette's great. Robert Pattinson, I'm very curious about, because he's kind of entering the Tom Hardy phase of his career, where he's like kind of
yeah, a little
coming
bit.
into a role voice first. I've seen the trailer for this, and it's like he's like someone from Milwaukee has been irradiated. Like his accent is so peculiar, and I'm really curious about what's going to go on there. And the voice role I'm talking about before this was he was in the English dub of The Boy and the Heron, and that he is really pushing himself to do something absolutely demented. And I'm very curious what this performance is going to look like.
I didn't see that in English. I'd forgotten he was the voice of the bird, wasn't he?
Yes, he was the voice of the bird. It is. I recommend at least like looking up a clip of that. It is wild, and he's unrecognizable. I mean, obviously, he's playing an animated bird. So, but I did not know. I thought it was Willem Dafoe doing the voice, and I kept trying to hunt for where Robert Pattinson was in the movie. But no, that was him the whole time.
He got very fond of the lobster.
Yes. Oh my goodness. But yeah, no, I'm curious about it. I'm maybe less excited than the two of you, which is maybe statistically likely considering how high it is on your two lists. And also, I have discovered about myself over the past year or so that I do not like Mark Ruffalo at all. I don't think the thing that he does works for me. And I was surprised to find that out about myself, but I have yet to find the movie that fixes that. And maybe this could be it. I will open my heart.
Interesting. Did you see Poor Things?
I did not. I half wanted to, and my boyfriend didn't, which is the equation for me not seeing a movie.
Fair. That was sort of the film that won me over on Mark Ruffalo more than anything else did. So if anything's going to do it, I'd like maybe seek that one out.
Okay.
The dialogue, the sort of ornamented dialogue in Poor Things kind of does it for me. And he really makes a meal of it. It feels like the same kind of offbeat that I get from Bong Joon-ho.
I feel like I'm not a huge Mark Ruffalo fan myself, just given everything else, and just given that Bong Joon-ho is directing him. I think that he's probably going to bring out something that we haven't seen before. So I'm excited.
And I mean, Bong Joon-ho can direct English actors, and he can also direct them to very interesting performances. Look at Jake Gyllenhaal in Oakjaw. I do not think that is a bad performance. That is a very unique and interesting delivery there, and I'm very excited. It's a very peculiar movie, which is what makes me excited. But I'm just I might not run. I'm gonna see it when I can.
With it, is there anything else on March 7th that's even going to challenge us to go and see anything else? I'm not feeling Night of the Zoopocalypse, whatever that is.
I watched the trailer for Night of the Zoopocalypse. It looks like whatever trashy, shit-ass looking CG animated bullshit we're getting these days, like Hit Pig, or whatever that movie about the like mummies that came out a couple years ago that I think was a UK release, or Rock Dog. Like, it looks like all of this terrible shit, but it's about like a mutant/zombie apocalypse that takes place at a zoo, and the animals trying to survive, which is it's a very unusual thing for what is explicitly a kids movie. And then also the trailer at one point says, "From the mind of Clive Barker."
That threw me so hard.
Yeah, and my jaw hit the floor. I looked into it. It's definitely he seems to have a story by credit, and I assume that means he told someone about a dream he had once while at a bar, and that's how this movie came to be. I don't think this man has... If you asked Clive Barker about Night of the Zoopocalypse, he'd say, what? I don't think he knows this movie exists. But a Clive Barker animated kids movie is something. I'm not going to watch it, but I want somebody to watch it and tell me what the fuck that is.
I feel like somebody on our Discord will seek it out.
Yeah. Let's not jinx it, but the Discord needs a new viral title, so this could be it. Keep an eye out. And I would also like to throw out, so there's a movie that allegedly is being released on March 7th. I don't know if it's being released in the UK or Australia, New Zealand, or the US or whatever. It is very unclear where it's coming out. It is coming to Shudder later down the road. But it is called The Rule of Jenny Penn. It is a movie that has received high praise from Stephen King, which means it is a movie that exists and he has seen it. But the trailer looks really interesting. Jeffrey Rush plays a former judge who's recovering from a stroke at a retirement home. And that retirement home is being terrorized by a John Lithgow with a Kiwi accent using this bizarre, like, porcelain baby doll puppet. And that I really want to see.
I'm with you actually. I was taken by the trailer for that. I wasn't. It looks like it's doing sort of the Shutter Island thing of, there's potentially a conspiracy to make the judge feel like he's losing his mind, and the sort of old-fashioned asylum horror in that sense. And I'm always up for that kind of story template if that's what it's going for. And the performances in the trailer did look like they were going for something interesting. So I might check this out if I have the opportunity. I'm not certain if or when this is getting a release over here, but I was curious. Yeah.
Yeah, and it will be streaming shortly. But yeah, Zev, Andrew, are there anything else? Is there anything else we're looking at March 7th that feels like it's jumping out at you, or can we move a week down the line?
I was going to flag up On Becoming a Guinea Fowl. That's actually one I had the opportunity to see a few weeks ago and I missed. It was screening at my local community-run theater. Occasionally they get releases outside of normal distribution. I think they get a stipend from the BFI. Apparently it's very well received. A Zambian film that's a sort of black comedy about a middle class family who find their uncle dead and sort of start to unravel the circumstances of his death and the secrets at the heart of their polite, respectable family. It's been getting very critically well regarded on the festival circuit. The trailer didn't necessarily light a fire under me, but I'm curious to see like who this is because apparently it's a new director and they're getting a lot of plaudits. I've never seen a Zambian film before, so that's something all by itself.
Yeah, and a plot that is so obvious given the title. You know exactly what that's going to be. No, yeah, I'm curious about it, and let's move on ahead to March 14th. Unless somebody desperately has something to say, we're going to skip the day the Earth blew up because that was talked about on the last episode. But I feel like given how things are going, we want to talk about Black Bag, the new Steven Soderbergh espionage thriller. Am I correct in my guess?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that looks. I'm on board with that. I mean, I groove with Steven Soderbergh generally, and having Kate Blanchett and it's Michael Fassbender, isn't it, as the husband?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just their sort of like combined star power as these sort of dueling espionage agents. Sort of like a classy Mr. and Mrs. Smith is almost the vibe I got.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I was taken by the cinematography in the trailer and just how soft focus everything looked and how gauzy. And I'm never quite sure what Soderbergh is doing these days with his sort of choices when it comes to lensing and focus. I remember No Sudden Move from a few years ago, which was a brilliant film whenever the camera wasn't panning laterally. And I don't know, maybe like this sort of visual scheme will start to work for me when I see it on a big screen. But yeah, I mean, just the names involved have me interested in this one by default.
I always feel like Steven Soderbergh always has like 2 or 3 movies coming out like a year, and as soon as I hear about one, he has another one. I'm like, what? But I feel like he's so consistently reliable. So
he's always doing something interesting.
Always, absolutely. I was just gonna say I saw the Limey only for the first time last year and was just blown away.
Well, yeah, it's almost impossible to be fully caught up. Like, I mean, I still need to see Presence, which I think is the movie of his that I'm more excited about from this year. But you're right; he's always doing something interesting. Like, look, I'm speaking as a Kimmy fan over here. I liked that movie quite a bit, so I think this one will could have some juice in it. And one that I'm not excited about, but definitely going to see and kind of tentatively curious about is Novocaine, starring Jack Quaid as a hapless action hero who stumbles into it because he has a condition where he cannot feel pain.
I was just going to say, the thing about Novocaine is I am also tentatively wanting to see that. The reason I'm hedging that is last month I said I was looking forward to Love Hurts as the sort of stunt oriented high concept action comedy that I was looking forward to, and I have been eating crow after that film's critical reception. So I'm just gonna put this one at arm's length just for the moment.
Yes, I completely agree. That makes me especially nervous. I saw Love Hurts. Speaking as someone who was deeply hurt by that movie, I maybe need some Novocaine to kind of numb the pain. But the thing that makes me most excited about this movie is that completely by accident, my boyfriend Ben and I watched the previous movie directed by the duo who are helming Novocaine. It's called Villains. It stars Micah Monroe and Bill Skarsgård as a couple who have just robbed. They've pulled their last convenience store robbery and they're trying to escape the state. And they end up holing up in a home of this couple who basically kidnaps them, and they're deeply fucked up. And it is a very fun, kind of genre-bending cat and mouse thriller. And we both really, really enjoyed that movie. And I was like, what? Who are these people? What are they doing? And turns out they're doing Novocaine. So that makes me a little more excited about the possibilities of what it could be in a way that the trailer kind of didn't.
Jack Quaid is having kind of a big spring, isn't he? He just had Companion as well.
He did just have Companion. I'm glad Companion was cheap enough that it's probably going to make its money back. Because I was like, these are two very obvious bids at putting Jack Quaid in the front and center in movies that maybe aren't going to do very well.
More the way things should be, rather than gambling everything on a $200 million folly. So, movies are back.
No, I've been seeing this year. I feel like we're kind of a little bit rebuilding the middle class of movies. We're kind of getting some mid-budget movies that are doing mid-level box office, and they're not becoming like runaway Barbie hits, but they're not failing. And that is what we need to have a more robust kind of cinema economy. So that's really exciting. Speaking of the even tinier movies, so Ray Nicholson is in Jack Nicholson's son from Smile 2. He's in Novocaine. He's also in another movie that debuts day and date in limited release. He's in Borderline as a stalker who essentially kidnaps Samara Weaving's pop star character. Are we interested in this movie?
I saw the trailer, and the first words that cropped up were from the minds behind. I think it was from the writer of Cocaine Bear and the producers of Barbie and Saltburn. None of that reads to me as auspicious. I've got to be real.
Okay. Yeah, the Cocaine Bear thing lost me, but the Barbie and Saltburn thing just means that Margot Robbie's involved, which I'm not mad about. And I loved Saltburn, so I they just had to throw Barbie in there because, of course. I don't know. It doesn't look that exciting, but it could be a good showcase for Ray Nicholson if he's like got something up his sleeve that we haven't seen in his like tiny roles that he's been doing.
Even if he's, you know how, oh God, what's Clint Eastwood's son's name? I'm blanking
Scott
on
Eastwood.
Scott Eastwood. You know how Scott Eastwood sort of has the bottom half of his dad's face, like he's got the mouth. If Jack Nicholson's son has like the mouth of Jack Nicholson, then that's all automatically kind of a That makes him qualified for a horror role. Just on
no, he does, and he showed off that mouth in Smile 2. He does have his dad's like shining Jack Torrance grin. Zev, did you have something to add about this or any other titles from the 14th?
From the 14th, I sincerely hope that Gavin McDowell makes it out to see The Last Supper and entices us all to see The Last Supper. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, he's gonna have to taste the poison on that because I don't know what that's gonna be. I recognized none of the names in the cast or crew.
Well, it's in the orbit of the God's Not Dead production people, isn't it?
Oh, is it a Pure Flix joint?
I don't know if it's a Pureflix joint, but God's Not Dead was name dropped in the trailer. So it definitely seems to be in that sort of evangelical agitprop orbit, which
Yeah,
incidentally means it absolutely will not be coming out here in cinemas or ever, potentially.
Well,
that's
then it should
probably good.
then it should absolutely be on Tim's radar as well.
Oh, could be.
But yeah, the I prefer my evangelical agitprop to be set in the modern day, because that's just a little more fun. Like I like Unplanned, the movie about the woman who takes a job at an abortion clinic and then has severe doubts because of her faith or whatever. That movie is purest, beautiful melodrama, chef's kiss. But I don't need to see what these people think about Jesus. I know they like him. Like it's not that exciting to me.
Yeah, it's. I'm not getting any like camp classic vibes from the trailer, so it may just be boring, which is the worst possible outcome for everyone involved.
Yeah, but Gavin will let us know. He will not. He first of all cannot back down from a challenge. Second of all, was probably already going to watch it.
100%.
But I think it's perhaps safe to move on to March 21st. Let's start with the title that might be that could, I don't know. I don't think it looks good, but maybe people will like it. The Alto Nights, where Robert De Niro plays two different mob bosses.
Well, the thing is, I do actually like Italian mob boss stories as a general rule. I was actually one of the people who was really down with The Irishman, and I still am. And it feels like it's trying to go for the same kind of latter day Scorsese, latter day De Niro energy. I'm really not getting good vibes from it. The trailer looks really it's not showing off anything that feels like it's bringing anything new to the table in terms of this genre of crime epic.
I'm looking at it right now. It's directed by Barry Levinson, and like
Yes,
he's kind of
yeah.
been silently working in this genre or something very similar, like very masculine type of either gangster um, or like boxing genres, and it's sort of like he's almost unrecognizable from his work, films like Tin Men or Diner, or even some of his other '90s stuff. But I'm just surprised what he's doing attached to this.
I was just saying, he's kind of become a workman director in the past couple decades. Like he made that 2012 found footage horror movie, The Bay, which I actually quite liked, but it's a very random thing for him to do.
I was looking at his filmography, and the first thing that jumped out at me was Sphere, of all things.
No, I mean
That's that.
I mean, I love Levinson's like very wholesome movies. Like I think those are the things he does really well. Also, he's from Baltimore. He's like the wholesome side of Baltimore, whereas John Waters is the dark is. But I mean, I love both of them. Also, I'm from Baltimore, so
Oh, I didn't know that.
but I kind of it feels sort of him doing. It feels right, but it still feels unrecognizable.
Yeah, it feels like a Scorsese tribute act. Like
Yeah.
that's all I get from it. From what I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it looks pretty generic. It looks like they slapped Robert De Niro as two different characters to give it texture in the same way that Better Man kind of was like, what if Robbie Williams is a monkey? And then it's not a music biopic.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, I will not be seated for the Alto Nights, but I will be seated with fury in my eyes for the other wide release of the year of that weekend, which is Disney's live action
Oh boy.
Snow White. Yeah, starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White and Gal Gadot as the evil queen and a bunch of anonymous people. The trailer shocked me by the fact that it seems to be actively cribbing from the Kristen Stewart and Snow White and the Huntsman in its additions to the material, which feels like a strange choice for Disney. But yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts on this Snow White
Uh,
abomination? Question mark. I'm gonna throw out that word, but I don't know how you feel.
Plead the fifth. I have no. I can't foresee any circumstance that I would end up seeing this from end to end. It's like I think we had this discussion on the Discord a while back. Like I'm the sort of holdout in the AE community where I don't really have any emotional investment in Disney properties to start with. Like and I have like the
Okay.
square root of no investment in the live action remakes of stuff like Beauty and the Beast or Pinocchio or whatever the fuck. It's like these weren't touchstones for
Hmm.
my childhood particularly, and like seeing this sort of corporate sheen being plastered over them in the 21st century, like they don't look like movies worth engaging with on any level, and I don't see any difference with Snow White. So that's my complete abdication of a take on Snow White.
No, that's entirely fair. And the just the grotesquerie of these
Mm.
CGI dwarves or whatever they're going to be called. The controversy there among the movie's many controversies is completely baffling to me in terms of what the response actually was and what the movie's actually going to look like. Um, but for me, I there's a lot of Disney movies that I watched as a kid. The few that I have deep in my heart are like kind of the more postmodern ones, like Lilo and Stitch and The Emperor's New Groove. And obviously they are fucking around and finding out with Lilo and Stitch a little later in the year. But for the live action ones, I will go see the ones that are musicals because I will go see a live action musical in the theaters. That's just kind of what I will do. Um, but the trailer for this has one of the new original songs for Snow White. And I was like, who did they hire to make this like treacly sub Pasek and Paul bullshit? And it turns out it was Pasek and
Now,
Paul.
Zev, like we know you're the music guy here, so I'm kind of like I am perhaps sadistically interested to get your take on what this does to the music in the original.
I'm always I'm trying to say I'm not going to have any words about it until it's out. However, I am boycotting it in at least in theaters. But I think I made a joke on the AE Discord back in November where I said it won't be out for 4 months, but I'm already 2 pages into my review. But so I've already kind of like written a lot about it. But when Disney released the 4K Blu-ray UHD restoration of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, their very first animated feature from 1937 to celebrate the Walt Disney Company centennial, where they went back to the original negative and
Hmm.
and did a lot to just preserve the colors of 1937 and many other things. I went and I bought it and it looked glorious. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is from 1937, a great movie. In my opinion, they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to this new Snow White. It looks like I think Mark Webb is directing this, and
Yeah.
he did direct 500 Days of Summer, but this looks like he's doing an impression of a film director. But it feels like for these live action remakes, they don't really care about who they hire to helm specific projects. You could literally play musical chairs with any one of these directors and still get basically the same result, with maybe possible exception of Tim Burton. His Alice in Wonderland making so much money is one of the great mysteries of big
And
budget.
kind of set the template for all of these remakes to follow, didn't
It
it?
did, and for that I just find utterly despicable. But
Mm. But the Tim Burton Alice feels very different from what we're getting now out of this kind of subgenre.
that I will grant that it feels like it still feels like it's coming from Tim Burton, although I don't know what happened to Tim Burton to make him go as bad as all
Hmm.
that. But I do agree that this feels more in the vein of they are just going, all right, do this, give it the same color grading, give it the same plot twists, give it the same half-assed progressive politics that they only really go into just to shut people up. I have it in my unfinished review. I said Disney will hear your critiques of the originals and they will take those in, but they don't care,
Mm.
which is why
Hmm.
they're addressing of those critiques is always going to feel like they're just going to say, yeah, we heard it, here you go, whatever. And it's always going to feel like it doesn't address anything about what you had to say about the originals to begin with. And I feel like if they did, they would be making maybe entirely new properties, or I would say that there's at least one Disney executive who has consumed far too much content from BuzzFeed.
Ha!
But that's just me. As far as the music goes, I've only heard of the new Pascal, what was played in the trailer. So I don't think the soundtrack has been released for the longest time. This has not had a film composer attached to it. Yeah, I mean, they have Jeff Morrow now scoring, I think alongside Pascal. They might be working on the score together, but this did not have because I think the reason for that is because I don't think they knew how to edit this thing for the longest damn time, because after all the controversies came out from Rachel Zegler and Peter Dinklage and everybody else, and I think that they spent much of 2023 and 2024 just trying to reshape and reshoot, and they give a budget number on Wikipedia of anywhere from $240 to $270 million. I expect that it's far higher than that after reshoots, and I have no idea what they're going to do in terms of marketing.
Do we expect this to make money?
I don't expect it to.
I struggle to picture it.
No, certainly not. I mean, I feel like it'll do what The Little Mermaid did, which was still be one of the top 15 movies of the year, but not really make its money back.
I don't expect it. I don't expect it to make as much money as Mermaid, because Mermaid at least had the nostalgia value of people our age, whereas Snow White doesn't really have that. Snow White does have Rachel Zegler, who people love through West Side Story,
a movie that they didn't see.
Yeah. But I guess it has Gal Gadot, but I think we've all gone past the Gal Gadot train at this point.
I think she's pretty toxic these days. That's a star persona that's really soured in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need to ponder why.
No.
But yeah, Snow White from top to bottom looks like a complete misstep from Disney, which is intriguing, but not necessarily makes for a good time at the movies. But is there anything in limited release that either of you... I see you have interjected here. You have Andrew, you wanted to add a title to the list. What do you have for us?
Yeah. Just one that I was surprised hadn't been listed just when you put this together on Google Docs, just because it's one thing that did kind of stick out to me this month is Ash. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me living in my bubble. But this the trailer for this movie, it's the new feature from a gentleman who goes by the nom de guerre Flying Lotus. He's a rap star and DJ who's dabbled in filmmaking as well. I think this is his second feature. He's made a few music videos. He's made a few shorts. And I was really struck by the kind of music video hypnagogic psychedelic imagery in this trailer. A woman wakes up on a down spaceship on an alien planet. The sky's sort of pulsating with these kaleidoscopic patterns. I was getting sort of big Mandy sort of synthwave music video vibes from the imagery. It's got Aaron Paul in it. It's got Iko Uwais in a supporting part. So it's pushing a lot of my buttons. The most recent marketing makes it look a bit more conventional than I thought it looked in the first instance, where it does seem
which I'm sure was the goal.
I'm tentatively optimistic. I'm hoping there's more to it than just sort of a B movie Prometheus knockoff. But there are some striking sort of colors and images in the marketing. So I do want to sort of put that on people's radars a little bit. It's just called Ash.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. This is not one that's been on. It has not been on my radar. Looks like it's coming out on Shudder in the U.S. and perhaps Amazon Prime internationally.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta look into what this is going to be, and it stars Isa Gonzalez, who I like from things including Alita Battle Angel, but people I think know her from Three Body Problem.
Oh, I have not seen Three Body Problem. I'll need to give that a look. I didn't know her from anything else, I admit.
She's been a kind of a hard-working character actress for a while. I believe she was in Baby Driver. I think she was in that From Dusk Till Dawn TV series, which is how she got into Robert Rodriguez's kind of orbit.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, I don't know that she's one of the great thespians of our time, but I like her, so that makes me curious.
Sure.
It's going on the watch list.
Sure. Well, I will throw out one. I, for one, am definitely going to try and make it out to see Locked.
Yes.
Partially, yes. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Because so this is Bill Skarsgård plays like a common thief who's trying to steal this like SUV van thing, but he gets locked inside it, and he is forced into a variety of kind of, Jigsaw-esque kind of like what those post-Saw movies were, where people were either trapped in a place or there were multiple people stuck in a situation, where like the car's driving around doing things and running people over, and he's going to be blamed for it. But the voice is menacing him is Anthony Hopkins, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to find out.
No, actually, thanks for reminding me of this, because the trailer was selling me on that quite hard. It came up in the middle, like from producer Sam Raimi, I think, and the moment I saw that, I was like, "Oh yeah, that feels right. That feels correct."
No, thank you for the reminder. I'm totally in agreement here.
Yeah.
No, you're very welcome. And I am fully, since Barbarian, I have been like, yes, let's get Bill Skarsgård not in makeup. Let's get him doing interesting things in movies. And so far, the general public has not, either they have not responded to the titles he's chosen, or they do not agree with me. But I keep waiting for his like face movie that people actually respond to, and this one's not going to be it. It's going to be a limited release, but it looks like it could be really fun.
Yeah. Bill Skarsgård is working his ass off at the moment. Like, you gotta respect the hustle for trying to get as high a profile as the rest of his family.
But yeah, that movie's going to be fun, and I will have no issue seeing it because my boyfriend has a huge crush on him, so it'll be easy to get out and make that happen. But let's start wrapping up. Let's hit March 28th. We've got a bunch of like mid-level bizarre things going on here. We can start with A24's Death of a Unicorn, which is kind of it kind of feels like if a spin-off of Cabin in the Woods, like if one of the random monsters from that list got a solo feature. It's Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega run over a unicorn, and it comes back for vengeance in this kind of like pharmaceutical family's compound. That it seems like it could be fun. What do you think, Andrew?
It looks wacky. The trailer was definitely going more towards the sort of broad and goofy end of horror comedy. That I don't know. I wasn't necessarily picking up what it was putting down, but I don't know. It could be a good time. It could just be a case of how the trailer was cut. And I think you're not the first person to make that observation about Cabin in the Woods. Wasn't there the whole gag in that movie about how, like, how the hell is a unicorn going to be listed alongside the rest of these monsters? It feels like somebody sort of picked up that gag and just ran with it into a feature-length screenplay, which is, and I liked Cabin in the Woods. So if that's the pitch, then yeah, I'm not averse to it.
Same here. No, I'm basically in the same boat. This looks like it would be a blast.
Yeah, and very solid cast. Will Poulter kicking around. He's funny. He was really funny in Midsommar. And did I see Richard E. Grant in the trailer? I think he's in it too. It could be something. I don't know.
One thing that struck me on March 28th, I saw the title A Working Man and thought for a moment that I knew nothing about it. Looked it up, and it turned out I'd already played half the trailer from several weeks ago. The bar was midway through the runtime, and I clicked on it. I realized I'd compartmentalized it in my head as the Beekeeper 2. Which is what it is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's David Ayer reuniting with Jason Statham, but 1 year later.
Yeah. Like, The Beekeeper was such a strange phenomenon last year, because it is basically just the kind of film that Jason Statham was making once every 3 months about a decade ago. And I guess does absence just make the heart grow fonder? And all the kind of people who excoriated those films back in the back around 2008 are now feeling like this represents a more august, dignified era of action schlock. I don't know. I didn't
Yeah,
like.
maybe it's nostalgic now.
Maybe I didn't particularly like the Beekeeper. I'm not particularly hopeful for this, but I do think it's just funny that apparently we've got our second wind of Jason Statham star vehicles.
Yeah, and you know what? Good for him. This one's randomly also got a screenplay by Sylvester Stallone, which used to be something, and these days is a
Yeah,
little questionable,
yeah.
I think. And it's based on Lavon's Trade by Chuck Dixon, everyone's favorite novel.
Not a name that rings any bells, I'm afraid. Sorry.
No, I think that's fine. Um, Zev, any thoughts on this, or should we move on to the next wide release?
I think I was just looking up the Woman in the Yard, and it looks very intriguing. I hope it doesn't turn out to be a carbon copy of the Babadook.
Hmm.
Huh. I don't know that it would necessarily. I mean, from the teasers that I've seen, it seems like it's doing kind of a different thing.
Yeah, the Babadook
I
isn't the first name that leapt to my mind, I have to admit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's How Michael Let Sarah, right? The director of this one. But yeah, it is. Sorry, because I always, for whatever reason, want to think that it's Tate Taylor who did Ma doing this one, but no, it's How Michael Let Sarah returning to horror after making Orphan and The Shallows, and then all of those Liam Neeson action movies. So I'm curious about it. It's about a woman in a veil sitting in a yard being creepy, and I don't know if that is a feature length premise. Um, and there's kind of like a Freddy Krueger rhyme in the trailer that's like, nobody knows how she got there. And I'm like, it's a woman sitting in a chair. Like, I'm not like shocked how she could have gotten in the yard. Like, I don't really know what the deal is with her just yet.
Feels like it could be an episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Ooh,
I mean, I
yeah.
brought up the Babadook comparison just reading the description, the synopsis. And maybe I should not read the synopsis on or a premise on Letterboxd, but it kind of gave similar dealing with loss and the trauma of that vibes that sort of the Babadook kind of tackled a little bit as well. So
Okay, sure.
maybe that was sort of
Yeah.
why that sprang to mind. But
No, that makes sense. And especially like kind of the single mom angle. Yeah, I did not know that. I've not read a synopsis. I just saw the teaser that tells you absolutely nothing about the characters at the center. I feel like if anything, that it's maybe more of just like every horror movie has to be about grief and trauma right now.
Hmm.
Partially because the Babadook was such a big success. But it maybe is aping the things that came after the Babadook, and that might work for or against it, and we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know. When I see marketing for a horror movie, the first thing I'm kind of looking for is just like give me a good monster to hook me.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I like Woman in Veil doesn't quite get me there. So I don't know, maybe I could give it a chance, but it's not one I'll be running out to see.
Yeah, I'll go see it. I mean, I see whatever Blumhouse slop they put out just out
Ah,
of
sure.
curiosity. I did miss Night Swim, and I don't regret having missed Night Swim. But anything in limited release calling out to you?
I do find it quite funny that we seem to be getting on the same day two Misanthrope is redeemed by adopting an animal movies, both The Friend and The Penguin Lessons. So,
Oh yeah. But I mean, isn't I kind of thought the friend is what is it? It's Naomi Watts,
it
right?
is
Or is it the dog?
it's Naomi Watts is in The Friend. It's Steve Coogan in The Penguin Lessons. Um, so I don't know, just the pairing of those next to each other just kind of tickled me. Um, so Naomi Watts, like apparently she's been getting good write-ups for her performance in this. They're saying like career best, which is um, strong words to have for the star of Mulholland Drive. But
Yeah, no worries. Oh, see, here's the thing. I didn't realize it was like Naomi Watts plus a dog because I saw Bill Murray was in the movie, so I assumed he became friends with Naomi Watts, and that was the thing.
oh no, I'm pretty sure the Dalmatian is the friend. It's
That
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything calling out to you, Zev?
Not in limited release right now. I think of the March 28 ones, Death of a Unicorn is probably the one that I'm most intrigued by.
For sure. And this is I think probably it's such a loud wide release slate of like mid-level movies that all the limited release kind of scurried elsewhere.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that means, we're at the end of March. We can wrap up this preview episode. For everyone who enjoyed listening to you two, where can they find you out on the internet? What do you want to plug? Zev, I know you had an album out that was new last time we talked about it, and I assume it is still out. Do you want to point people to that and anywhere else they can find
Sure,
you?
yeah. So the album that came out back in January was called Paranormal Phenomena. It was released by one of the production music libraries that I regularly write for called Empath Music. It's been getting its first placements, yay! So that's good.
Yay.
That's good. I've been seeing it show up on some detection, so that's always good. Especially since it literally just came out. So tracks generally tend to take a little longer to start picking up placements. So when things start popping up, I'm just like, whoa. So that's fun. I just finished up a new album actually. And I just got the mastered tracks, and I was listening to them when I was at the airport yesterday. So it's not out yet, but when it is, maybe I will drop it in the Discord. But always working on stuff. Finishing up 2 short films that maybe I'll talk about in the near future. But
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been remiss. I need to listen to the latest album because I always like the stuff that you link to over on the Discord, Zev. Yeah, it's always a treat.
And yeah, where can people find you, Andrew?
So you can find me. I've been running a podcast of my own while co-hosting with my good friend Daniel Abigail over on twofriendswatch.com. We actually hosted Brennan, weirdly enough, as a guest a few years back, so we've been hanging around for a while. But yeah, we've got our latest episode was on Moonfall a few weeks back, and
Great.
we will be releasing a new episode, but we're going to be talking about On the Silver Globe on the recommendation of Gavin McDowell, our good friend. I think Daniel was perplexed and infuriated, so we'll be talking about that at some length in the days to come. So twofriendswatch.com is the website.
Hell yeah, you got the domain and everything.
Yeah,
that's great.
hell yeah.
But yeah, and for more episodes of this show and others, including Bride of Alternate Ending, which is the horror sideshow that I do host permanently alongside Tim, you can find all of that at alternateending.com. And I guess you can follow me on social media at It's Raining Brens, which 2 of the other publications that I write for have recently sent out messages saying, you gotta be more active on social media. So fucking follow me, I guess. Whatever. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to be there, but I have to be just a little bit. So find me wherever. I'm on all of them. I'm still on X. Everyone has abandoned me, and I have abandoned it emotionally, but the
hamster wheel keeps spinning.
It does. I know. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. Blue Sky seems to be happening more than Threads is. I'm on whatever. I'm on Instagram. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism, everyone. And so, yeah, whatever. Bye-bye!